Hello, TTI students, and welcome to the TTI troubleshooting video for the CSS portion of your camp experience. Ooh, start over. Hello, TTI students, and welcome to the troubleshooting section of your CSS experience. So we're going to talk in this video specifically about troubleshooting very specific problems. So we're going to go through a couple scenarios, and we're going to talk about how those actually apply to everyday situations and what types of solutions you can come up with. And troubleshooting is really about problem solving. It's really about getting to the root of the problem, and trying out multiple solutions can actually help you solve an issue. There's not always just one answer. Sometimes there's multiple. So let's go through these. We're going to kind of blitz through them really quickly here. The first one, an application is running very slowly. One of the things you can do is you can close and reopen that application. You can also make sure, so you can do that, and there's multiple different ways to do that. You can use Alt F4 to automatically close it. You can use the red X in the top right-hand corner, or you can use your task manager. And we'll get into that a little bit later when we talk about frozen applications. So another thing to do is to check for updates on the application. So this is actually a good solution for both this one and the next one we're going to get into, which is frozen applications. What you can do is in your help menu on most non-web-based programs, you just go to help and you can go to check for updates. It'll actually check online. You have to be connected to the internet to do this. It'll check online for the most recent updates of that program. So that's a good thing to do. It's a good practice. It helps you to make sure that everything is up to date with that program, and it should speed things up just a smidge for you, okay? The next situation we're going to get into is a frozen application. So if your application is frozen or if your computer is frozen, these are different steps you can take to make sure to get your computer unfrozen and get you back into what you needed to do. So first, one of the things you can do is force quit the application. So if you use Control-Alt-Delete, that will pull up a menu that will give you options to either log out, shut down the computer, or go to Task Manager. If that menu does not come up, it means your computer itself is frozen. I would wait a good 2 to 3 minutes to actually allow your computer to process the command. If it is frozen, it means that it's running a bit slow on the program processing side. So give it a good 2 to 3 minutes. After that point, if Task Manager has not come up, it's a good idea to actually restart the machine and power it all the way off, power it all the way back on, and see if that actually allows you to use the computer again, all right? So anyways, if you do get to Task Manager, what you can do is you can check on the specific program that is frozen or not responding. Sometimes it will give you a grayed out screen with a not responding script, and you can right click and hit End Task to end that program right away, okay? So that's one of the big ones. Last but not least, like I said, restarting the computer. It's always your last resort. You want to try to solve the issue while the computer is running first, because a fresh restart sometimes will automatically get you to being able to use the machine, but it may not solve the underlying issue, all right? All right, so let's see here. All right, so there is another thing that can also happen to your computers, and that could be the entire machine freezing. And this not only happens to your computers, but it can also happen to other devices like cell phones and tablets and things like that. So the way this issue works is if the device completely freezes, you can run a power cycle in the device. This is a little bit different than just restarting. A power cycle involves holding your power button down for about 10 seconds. For tablets and cell phone devices, holding down the home button and the power button for about 20 seconds will do a power cycle in the device. Another way to do a power cycle is to simply remove the battery from the machine, unplug it from any outlets or power sources, and wait a good 5 seconds and reinsert that battery. Those are actually doing the same thing when you're holding down the power button for about 10 seconds. It's actually removing the battery power completely, and it's draining all the power out of the machine and then allowing the machine to start back up. Okay, next one. So the mouse or keyboard stops working on your machine. If you're using a wired external mouse or peripheral, try plugging it into a different USB port. Sometimes USB ports do short out, especially with USB 2.0 ports. So if you plug it into a different port, that can actually mitigate that issue right away. Now, if it's an onboard keyboard or mouse or trackpad, you want to check your drivers. So you can go to Device Manager on your computer. This is actually a common place to fix a lot of firmware issues with your device. So a lot of times firmware does fail from time to time. A lot of times you do need firmware updates on your computer. So if you go to your device manager, you can go to your start menu and just type it in. It's going to pull up this menu that has all of your devices on your computer. If any of those tabs are open and a device has a yellow triangle with an exclamation point by it, it means that that device's firmware is having issues. So you can mitigate that by either running updates, rolling back that device, or you can actually uninstall the device completely and restart your computer. Now, I will say that this step, that last one that I mentioned, uninstalling and restarting your computer, only works for devices that are native to the machine. So it only works for devices that are actually a part of your machine. If you have any peripheral devices that you have connected, like a printer or a mouse or a keyboard that you could plug into your computer, you're going to want to actually go to the manufacturer website for that device and download the latest drivers. Okay? So we got 2 more, and I'll be done with you for now. The video has gone much longer than 5 minutes, so we'll make it short for you. Okay, lastly, we have the screen is blank. So this can happen if your computer is in sleep mode. That's the first solution. You can simply click on your mouse or any key on the keyboard to wake up your machine. Make sure that your monitor is plugged in or turned on. If you're using a laptop and the screen is blank, it could also mean that the hinges are and the connection is broken between your screen and the motherboard. So you might actually need that to be serviced. But before you do that, just make sure that the computer is plugged in and turned on, and make sure that you've tested out a multitude of different issues. Also try power cycling the machine. That can also help to reset it. Make sure there's battery power coming in. You can check that by checking the lights on your computer. There's always a light dedicated to the battery to make sure that there is power coming into the machine. Okay? Last one is a really common one. I can't hear sound. There's no sound coming out of your computer. So first solution is to make sure that your volume's turned all the way up. You can also test your sound outputs by clicking on the little audio button at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you just click to change the volume anywhere in there, it's actually going to give you that little beep sound you heard a couple times. That sound actually allows you to test what the system sounds are. Now, some people do have their system sounds turned down. So what you want to do is you can actually check all of that in the volume mixer, and you can actually test out what the system sounds sound like. And that's another way to test to make sure the speakers are working correctly. Okay? Now, if that isn't working, you can also check your device manager again. You can check your device manager to see if these audio drivers are installed properly. And the last one is you can right-click, and if you go to playback devices, it should show you all of the devices that you have on your computer for playback. So your speakers, if you have headphones, if you have any other devices plugged in, it'll show those devices as well. And make sure that your sound output is coming from the device that you want it to come from. So it could be that you have headphones plugged in and the volume is actually coming from the device itself, and it's not coming through the headphones, and it's playing through your onboard speakers. So make sure that you are playing your audio output from the correct place. All right. Lastly, check your cables. Make sure that all of your audio cables, like for your headphones, or if you have an external audio player, make sure all those cords are turned on, and if it is a device that requires power, make sure that the device is powered on. All right, so it's been quite a long video, but I'll stop there. So those are a couple different troubleshooting scenarios. There's a couple more ones that you can actually do, and there's a couple deeper troubleshooting steps that you can run as well. For example, if your internet is not working, you can do things like an IP config reset, and those will be in the PowerPoint, and also you can find those in the Linda video at lynda.com. All right. That's it for me. You all have a wonderful day, and yeah, thanks for tuning in.